Welcome back. If you thought last week's fiery hearing was the end of Senate Republicans' fight with Dr. Anthony Fauci, think again. This morning in a party line vote, the Homeland Security Committee voted to hold Fauci, the government's former top infectious disease expert, in contempt of Congress. The chair of that committee, Senator Rand Paul, said he's skipping the usual vote on the full Senate floor and just sending the referral directly to the DOJ.
We will hand carry this over to the Attorney General. We will hand carry this to the district court here in Columbia, and we will, as a committee, we have voted the majority to refer this, so that will be accomplished today.
Fauci's lawyers are calling this a crude political stunt intended to punish him. If he's charged and convicted, he could face up to a year in prison. I want to bring in Dr. Paul Offit, director of the Vaccine Education Center at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, MS Now legal affairs reporter Fallon Gallagher, and Tim is, of course, back with me. Dr. Offit, first to you. You know Dr. Fauci personally. I wonder, have you spoken to him over the course of the last few weeks? How's he handling this?
Well, we've had a number of texts back and forth. I think he's handling it pretty well. I think he sees this for what it is, which is sort of this just vicious attack against science and against public health, and at some level against expertise. But I think he's in generally good spirits, which is amazing considering what he's gone through over the last few weeks.
I wonder how he, and frankly you, as someone else who works in the public health field, are thinking about the ways that this is not a good faith debate on how do we prevent the next pandemic? How do we ensure that however COVID began, we are being smarter about how to prevent it from the next version of this from harming people? I mean, instead, it's just all politics, and it's all baked in on old conspiracy theories, frankly. I mean, how are you thinking about this moment?
It's hard to watch. I mean, you had a SARS-1 pandemic in 2002, 2003. You had a MERS pandemic in 2012. You have this pandemic, the COVID pandemic, starting in 2019. That's 3 bat coronaviruses that all had this animal to human spillover event that have caused people to die. There's going to be another coronavirus pandemic. And are we any better prepared based on these Senate hearings? Absolutely not. Also, bear with me a second. This was an animal to human spillover event that occurred in the southwestern section of the Hunan wholesale seafood market. What the Chinese government did is the first time with the first pandemic in 2002, 2003, they didn't kill the animals. So you could go look at the animals and see that they were the conduit from bat viruses to human. Now they knew what happened at the Hunan wholesale seafood market, so they killed all the animals. What they didn't do, though, is kill all the genetic information that was there, that you could see that they were selling animals illegally under unhygienic, unsanitary conditions like bamboo rats and palm civets and raccoon dogs. They can't do that. And then you also saw SARS-CoV-2 virus, the 2 lineages that affected those people that worked at that market, because those were the original people. And then it all spread out from there. This is not a controversy. Look at the articles in Science or Nature or Cell. It's just hard to watch this denialism. We just have to find some way to blame Tony Fauci for giving money to the Wuhan Institute of Virology that caused a pandemic for the first time in human history that a pandemic has ever been made, a virus has been made in a laboratory. How about a little more evidence than just innuendo and conspiracy theory?
I do also think that there would be appetite from a public that was all impacted by the pandemic to have a really good faith conversation on getting that information out there and just understanding a little bit better what led to a really pivotal inflection point in our country and in our world. But Tim, there's also ripple effects on the Hill, because the ranking member of this committee, Senator Peters, said this decision is going to have knock-on effects. I want you to listen to what he said.
The chairman is now asking the committee to take a vote that could harm our ability to conduct future investigations and disregards constitutional protections long recognized by the U.S. Senate, all without making a reliable case that there is a legal basis for holding Dr. Fauci in contempt.
That has an impact on the Hill.
It has an impact on the Hill, and it has an impact on the American public. You know, in science and vaccines are good things in a healthy society. And when you start to tell public servants who could go into the private sector like Anthony Fauci could have done during any time in his career and stayed there and reaped the rewards financially from doing that, but chose instead to be a public servant, that any mistake you made during your service to the country could get weaponized against you and your reputation gets shredded. your sense of your own safety in our society gets shredded. Yeah. We're in a perilous place, and it's also happening to Jack Smith. He's being chased around the block for prosecuting 2 very viable cases that involve the president. The most recalcitrant operator and figure during the whole COVID episode was Donald Trump. Over 1 million Americans died. No one is taking Trump in front of a congressional committee and asking him about all of the false steps or bad faith he had during the COVID era. And Anthony Fauci is being made a scapegoat for a part of the Republican Party that doesn't believe in an information-based society, doesn't believe in institutional authority, and doesn't believe in a collective good.
I mean, I will also say, like, I've just questioned who is this for, which maybe we'll have time to revisit. I don't know. But it just feels like this hearing, amid everything else, feels like it doesn't have an active service going forward in a positive or political sense. But Fallon, we're talking about the longer ripple effects to something like this. But in the immediate term, can you just walk us through the legal questions here? Because Senator Paul skipping the usual floor vote, he'll be sending this recommendation or walking this recommendation, he says, as he says, directly over to DOJ. What is the tangible impact of that from like a DOJ and legal perspective?
Yeah, Allie, this is really unprecedented, and that unprecedented sort of rushed nature here could ultimately undermine its legitimacy if and when this case goes to a court of law and is before a judge. Typically what happens is that these go before the full Senate. You get that full vote before this goes to DOJ to get that full backing and support, that legitimacy of the full Congress, and that didn't happen here. Of course, that happened when the Democrats were in control and they were doing all of the January 6th era referrals. But let's just game this out. So we know that Rand Paul is possibly walking this over to DOJ. It's making its way over there. This will go to Jeanine Pirro's office because that's the D.C. U.S. Attorney's office. And so if she decides to act on this, she doesn't have to at this point. It's a referral. But if she decides to act on this, let's say she presents this case to a grand jury. She doesn't always get grand jury indictments. She has a history of that. But let's say she does. This case will go before a judge here in D.C. District Court. Fauci's lawyers will almost certainly move to dismiss it. If and when they do that, they will have this rushed, sort of half-baked process, that this unprecedented way that Rand Paul decided to do this as evidence, as grounds for possible dismissal, and then it'll be up to a judge.
So that's what it could look like. We'll see if it gets that far. But we know Jeanine Pirro is in tough standing after what happened around the reflecting pool. Let's see. Dr. Paul Offit, Fallon Gallagher, thank you both for spending some time with us. Tim.